I'm Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
And this is Trash Doctor, that podcast where there should have been another way, because this week we watched Warriors of the Deep.
Written by Johnny Byrne.
Directed by Pennant Roberts.
And aired from January 5th to January 13th, 1984.
Yes. Yes, the infamous Merca.
Yeah, the infamous this story as a whole.
the infamous everything about this story.
Especially that ending. I forgot how bleak the ending of this was. Totally forgot.
I forgot not only that, but also how it just ends. How it just ends.
There is no real resolution to, and that's weird because, this story, I don't know, actually, I don't even know what I'm saying, but but it's like this story, since it just ends when everyone dies, it's as if there's no greater, meaning or purpose or whatever behind it. It's just this is the story of these fools who I don't know, just stumble their way through treachery, death, destruction, and causing all of that, for reasons that range from selfish and idiotic to perhaps understandable, if not justifiable. But in reality, what happens is that it just ends when everyone dies.
I'm sure there was one or two survivors, wasn't there? Or am I misremembering?
I don't think so. I think it's just the Doctor, Tegan, and Turlough.
For some reason, I really thought that the female commander survived.
No, I don't think so.
Well, maybe I was just so not into the story by episode 4 that I didn't even notice. Although I have some funny notes about episode 4 and in fact its entire story, because there are a lot of humorous things that just occur in the background of shots that aren't the focus of the shot but happen on screen. Before we get into that, though, like I mentioned last week on Underworld, and what seems to be continuing to be the case with every story we've watched for this Redux, there were massive production notes and chaos behind the scenes for this episode. Serial, I should say. Basically, Johnny Byrne wrote Arc of Infinity, which brought back Omega, where he wanted to... I think that was the one where he wanted to sink Amsterdam.
Well, we always joke about that, yeah.
And so this season, I suppose he was like, hey, remember how successful it was bringing back that weird, obscure, ancient character? What if I bring back the Sea Devils? And apparently the production crew was like, sounds like a great idea, Johnny. Why don't you add in the Silurians? And he's like, oh yeah, gonna do it. Apparently he wanted to make this a Cold War analog, because the Cold War was still going on in 83. So that's a thing that I didn't even really process about the story till I read that. So
well, it's pretty. I read in the novelization of this, it's more clear because Terrence Dicks writes in the line about, or maybe it's not a line, I'm not sure. Maybe it's an entire I don't know, thing about the Eastern Bloc and he calls it the Western Bloc. I don't know, the term Western Bloc is widely used. Or was widely used. Maybe it was. Maybe I just don't know anything.
I mean, I've never heard it myself, so...
I've heard Eastern Bloc to refer to
Yeah, I've heard Eastern.
Yeah. But, so, yeah, Terrence Dicks writes that into the novelization. And there is that line in the story. I forget exactly what it was, but it's in episode 1. And I think Tegan says, not much has changed, between 1984 and 2084 or whatever. And the Doctor's like, no, still two superpowers with their fingers on the triggers.
Well, I imagine it was a lot more prevalent in the original draft, which Johnny Byrne turned in, and then he immediately buggered off to America because he was like, goodbye.
And I don't want to be there when this story airs.
Eric Saywood looked at it and he's like, yeah, half of these episodes are double the length that they're supposed to be. So Eric Saywood apparently had to trim and cut and rewrite like a substantial portion of these stories, like it seems like most of the script editors have done for all of these disastrous stories we've watched.
Uh,
The Merca was designed to be like a pantomime horse with one man in the front, one man in the back. Apparently, though, there is actually a reason why the Merca looks so terrible, and that's because of production chaos. They moved the filming of this story up a week, and there was considerable worry amongst J&T and Saywood and the rest of the crew that the Merca was not going to be ready by the time filming came. And so the filming started on June 23rd. Apparently by this point, Davison knew that Colin Baker was going to be his replacement, but was keeping it hush-hush because nobody else knew except him and J&T. And the Merca was...
Not even Colin Baker.
Not even Colin Baker knew. The Merca was not ready on the 23rd, and J&T was basically... He went to the prop designer and was like, look, it has to be ready by tomorrow, or like... we can't put it in the story and we're gonna have like major problems. So he worked all night getting the Merca ready. Apparently when they put the Merca on for the first time, the paint was still drying. Like it wasn't even dry yet when they started filming the Merca scenes. Stained. Who played Nyssa?
Sarah Sutton.
Oh, not Nyssa. Tegan. Who played?
Yeah, shoot.
Who played Tegan? Oh, Janet Fielding. It stained Janet Fielding's clothes with paint while they were filming, and it was just all around disastrous. And they didn't have a choice because they were determined apparently, not to lose any stories in season 21. Like they had apparently lost a story in season 20 due to production chaos and striking and industrial action, and they were determined to get every story filmed for season 21. So they pressed on, and here we are.
Yeah, I mean, they did it. This is the very first serial of season 21. I completely forgot about that before watching it.
Yeah, me too. And it's also the Fifth Doctor's final season, which I also forgot about that.
Yeah, I mean, this story, like, I don't know. I remember it. I remember disliking it, but I don't remember. I guess I didn't remember like the placement of it. You know?
Yeah, it just kind of filled this nebulous void in my mind. The only things I really remembered about it were the Merca.
Yeah, I think at this point, when we were going through the show for the first time, like, all the seasons, at least to me, were kind of blending together and becoming less distinct, because I remember probably up through season 11, so like the last season of the Third Doctor, like all the seasons I think remained pretty distinct in my mind. And then like I think once we got into the Tom Baker era, it was just like, all right, this is just one big thing. Like this is just one length of TV until we get to the new series.
I think that only started to happen after the Key to Time series for me. Because the Key to Time series is very distinct from all the other seasons. And then like after that, it was like, well, blah, here's the rest of the show.
Even though like that's actually weird, because that's basically the point, well, maybe into the Sixth Doctor's era, I guess, is basically the point where the show stopped being a continuous thing and started actually taking breaks.
Yeah, but we still continue to watch it as a continuous thing.
And we still do.
Yeah, we still do, for some reason. When's the BBC going to pay us for this show?
Yeah, like we joked on online, when's the BBC finally going to hire us? When are we going to become official podcasters? Official Doctor Who podcasters?
Well, I'm really just, when are they going to hire us to be the showrunners? Like, we all know they will eventually. BBC. Our email is at the end of every podcast. You can reach out.
Why you haven't yet is beyond me, You're only delaying the inevitable. kind of like we were all those years we didn't start Inevitable, a classic sci-fi podcast. Check that out.
See, speaking of Inevitable, this was a bad week for us because we watched two really, really bleak stories for our two podcasts.
Yeah, but
hopefully whatever we choose for the Sixth Doctor next week is going to be not as bleak.
I don't. I mean, there's two options on our. There's two options that we have for the next story, and realizing now that we haven't discussed what we're doing and we've already started recording is just perfect. And personally, I'm okay with Mind Warp. I remember that one being pretty damn bad.
All right, we'll do Mind Warp.
All right, I like how we're just continuing this as if you're not going to cut.
So anyway, that's the story of the production woes for this week. Can't wait to see what they come up with next week. Probably something equally as chaotic. Watch the story we watch for the Seventh Doctor just be like completely an unchaotic, a perfect production story, and the story just like sucks. Because so far it seems like a substantial amount of potential suckage, shall we say, potential terribleness is maybe explained. You notice how many qualifying statements I'm throwing in here? Maybe explained by the production woes.
Yeah, you might be hedging a bit here. Perhaps.
Just possibly. Just mayhap.
Mayhap.
So, the story opens with Turlo and the Doctor and the TARDIS, and for 5 minutes I had legitimately forgotten that Tegan was even in this story.
They say her name before she shows up on screen.
Yeah, in a throwaway line that, like, totally doesn't, or at least from my memory, doesn't indicate that Tegan is necessarily still on the TARDIS.
Gosh, doesn't this open actually with Maddox and Nilsson and Commander, or whatever his name was? Commander...
I just had him as the commander, the whole story. That's what I wrote down.
He had a name. It was...
Was it Commander Maxwell?
It was Vorshak.
Wow.
It opens with them on a base.
Oh, yeah. I have a note here that says that's a probe, quote, underwater, quote, unquote. Because they're allegedly in a sea base. But there's absolutely nothing that indicates that it's a sea base except the fact that everybody on the base keeps calling it a sea base.
Yeah, and in fact, I remember stupidly thinking during our first run through this story that they were actually in space. I remember mentioning that on the episode and laughing about how I didn't realize that they were underwater.
Yeah, I had that experience this time through. Even though I was aware it was underwater, every time I saw the base, I was like, why does it look like they're in space?
Yeah, maybe it just has that effect. Maybe that's why they had to keep writing it into the script, although probably not, because this were probably completed before anything else was.
Yeah, but I'm sure when Eric Saywood saw the sets, he was like, oh no. Oh no.
Just throw in that underwater, line a few more times here just to make sure people know.
I like to imagine Eric Saywood sitting at his desk and he sees the Merca on screen. He's like, oh no, oh no. And he like pulls up the script and he pulls out a red pen and he scratches out some lines and he writes in, oh look, the terrifying beast, the Merca, for like the Doctor to say.
Yeah, but surprisingly, I actually think that this base, this set, and really the costumes as well, are pretty good.
Yeah, the costuming in this story is really well done. I wrote, oh god, what is Tegan's outfit in my notes, but looking back on it, I actually really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was sort of, I don't even know how to describe it. It wasn't tie-dye, but it was like, I don't know, just... It looked like have you ever seen like it's not the original cover of Ulysses. The original cover of Ulysses is just blue with the word Ulysses on it. But like the other famous cover of Ulysses is like this sort of arrangement of shapes, and they're all in bright primary solid colors. Kind of looks like that.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, I'll put the cover that I'm talking about in the show notes if I can find it, which I probably will be able to. That's what it reminded me of. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it what shoot. It reminded me of this design I've seen before, but I can't place it. I wasn't able to place it while I was watching either. I was like, damn, really wonder what that's reminding me of. Oh well.
yeah. So I think visually, this story, I mean, maybe until the Merca shows up, is actually pretty good. But story wise, plot wise, character wise, I was already checked out 5 minutes in.
Yeah, I would have checked out as soon as the Silurians showed up and had some of the worst dialogue ever put to screen in Doctor Who. I'm not sure if you like actually listened to the sentence construction of their speech and just what they were saying in general, but I have like written here one of the things they say is they're like, we will awaken the Sea Devils as we had always planned in the first place. And I was like, what? What?
Well, okay, devils or maybe sea devils advocate here. Like, what's wrong with that? Like, why are you pointing that out specifically?
Just the construction of the line, because they talk about doing something and then they go, as we had planned in the first place. And like the phrase is so awkwardly constructed and also so awkwardly delivered by the Silurians, who now sound like Daleks, I guess.
Yeah, so that's also the thing too, is like I completely didn't remember that the Sea Devils just had Ice Warrior voices, and I don't know, that kind of bugs me for some reason. I don't know why, but like just the fact that their voices are just breathy whispers delivered sinisterly is like, yeah,
In other news, Keon will be opening an ASMR channel for all of our listeners out there
no,
who enjoyed that.
no.
Hello, guys. Today, we'll be investigating the Merca.
I don't even know.
There's
Yeah, go ahead.
a subtle distinction between the Sea Devils and the Ice Warriors, because the Sea Devils are more like, we will find you. And the Sea Devils are more like, we are ready to take over. You know, there's a subtle difference. There's a subtle difference there.
Uh huh.
You don't sound convinced.
You
don't sound convinced.
I actually am. I'm convinced, but I just don't have anything else to say about that. Well,
I see what you're saying. I mean, it's okay. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna dive into like, you know how like lungs. People say like, yeah, lungs in mammals are the evolution of gills. In like, way back in prehistoric times when like, I don't know, our naturally selected ancestors crawled out of the primordial soup of the prehistoric sea. People say like lungs are evolutions of gills, but that's apparently actually not true. Apparently they're like little, I don't know, vestigial like organs that some people still have, or that we all still have, but that are apparent more in some people, that are just like little, not microscopic, but like nearly microscopic holes near your ears. And I was going to go somewhere with that, but the reason why I stopped is because I didn't really have anywhere to go with that, in relation to the Sea Devils' voices. That's all I was going to say. Apparently, okay, so I learned this like a little while ago. Apparently the lungs are like the evolution of the swim bladder, which is a thing that fish have that like controls their like elevation in the water. Like they like release and fill the swim bladder with liquid to control how deep they are in the water. Apparently the lungs are an evolution of that.
Huh.
Yeah. That's what
Thanks,
I heard.
evolution. Thanks, evolution.
Which begs like
Well,
that. I mean, this story actually does beg similar questions of like. It almost reminds me of what we talked about when we watched the Peter Cushing movies of like, why the hell is the Dalek society built around them having hands when they don't? You know, why the hell do the Sea Devils wear like samurai armor? Why does their entire society like seem to be based around them not even being underwater creatures to begin with?
well, I mean, there's the whole question of how did their society completely and utterly change itself since the last appearance of the Silurians and the Sea Devils? Like, why did the Silurians become the Daleks and the Sea Devils become the Ice Warriors? You know, was it like, did they not want to shill out the money to Brian Hales to bring back the Ice Warriors? Like, did they not want to pay Terry Nation for the Daleks? Like, what are these discount knockoff versions?
You think Terry Nation got a check every time they used the Daleks?
He has to have, because wasn't it like when back in those days, like if you wrote the story, you got the rights to everything in that story, which is why the K9 and Company or the K9 TV show can use like all of the Bob Baker, Dave Martin creations, like Omega.
Yeah, I think it is still like that. I think Britain has a lot, I guess, if not better, then more supportive of the artist, like their ownership and rights laws and such. Because, I mean, just based on what I know about Doctor Who, pretty sure if you create a character for a story, you, like, own that character.
Yeah. So I'm sure they're like just shelling out money to Terry Nation at this point, like showering his estate in gold.
Yeah, which I don't think that's the case here, right? Like, I think if you write a movie character or a TV character, like, in the US, I don't think you own that character, you know?
Nope. Pretty sure it goes to the corporation. Nice. Nice.
It's channeling my inner, I don't know, breathy sea devil, I guess. Although they didn't have really
do the rest of the podcast like this.
No. Hell no. Just as an aside here, I probably shouldn't even be going into this. You're probably going to cut.
Well, we should get back to the story at hand.
Right, because we're not even 5 minutes into it.
Well, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. So the missile commander dies, and Maddox, who was assigned here on, I guess, what is the sea base version of an internship, now has to run missile command if they ever need to fire a missile. And he laments this fact to what's her name now?
I don't remember.
Well, he laments this fact to his friend, who is the female commander, whose name I did not write down and don't remember because that's how great these characters were and how many times they said their names on screen. And she's basically like, look, we probably won't even have to fire a missile, so you're probably fine. And he's like, but what if we do? But what if?
But she also says something here that's like weirdly, like, I think timely, considering what's happening in the world, or at least the United States right now, is that she says, like, she kind of writes off, like, you know, are you going to let a little loss of life prevent you from doing your job? No.
Wow. What? Wow.
And, you know, that resonates a lot more than it should right now. A lot more than it should.
Yeah, I'd really like prefer if it didn't resonate, you know, be nice.
Yeah, I mean, the characters in this story are not presented as being good, any of them, really, even the Doctor. And, you know, I think Tegan even has a line later on of, like, fat lot of good progress does. So, like, I don't know, this story is really drawing me out of its own little world and back into reality.
Unfortunately, I watch Doctor Who to escape reality. I mean, we also get hit with some hard, like, this random environmentalist message, because the Doctor and co show up and they destroy a probe because they accidentally materialize outside the base. They destroy a probe, and then they materialize inside the base, and they get out and they see all these cylinders, and the Doctor's like, hexachromite, lethal to marine life. Probably should have been banned by now. But I guess, progress isn't as much, help to marine life as we thought it was. And I was like, another, hits too close to home. Too close to home.
Yeah, in hindsight, all this stuff kind of makes me more okay with the bleakness of this. I don't know. Maybe I don't like the story, but I kind of, see where it's coming from. Where this is a future world. This is I think they say it's 2084.
Yeah, it's 2084.
But it's like things are just worse. Nothing's better. Everything's either just the same or worse.
Yeah, I mean, I get why the ending was bleak, in the context of the story being humans don't change, everything sucks, Cold War Part 2, which is where we're heading now. Cold War Part 2, kill all the marine life, launch missiles at each other, everybody dies, nothing changes in 100 years, because this aired in 84 and was set in 2084. So, 100 years, nothing changed. Really, really pessimistic outlook on the human condition.
Yeah. That's the thing, too. When I was watching this, I was like, man, would Doctor Who have a story like this nowadays? And it kind of does with stuff like Orphan 55. But at the same time, even at the end of a story like Orphan 55, there was some sort of positive, message of things suck, but they don't have to suck as long as people work towards making them not suck. Here it was just everything just sucks, and at the end, even when you're trying to save everyone, you just end up killing everyone.
Well, even in Orphan 55 and any other time Doctor Who has done this in the modern era, the bleakness is always shown to have happened before the story happens. So Orphan 55 is all the bleak stuff that the Earth is destroyed, and that all happened before the story. We don't watch Earth get destroyed by humans, right? All of this has happened before, and the story itself is about how there are still good people left and how the humans can still change their future and fix everything and be good if they just try. Whereas this is we watch the bleakness happen and we watch humanity just suck, and then the Doctor at the end just goes, this shouldn't have happened, but it was destined to, basically.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
So back to the bleakness, there's this little disc that's the all-powerful godlike disc, because it hypnotizes you. It can input commands into your brain and controls you. So the Doctor wants to use it to reassure Maddox, to remove his fear and his fear of inadequacy at being able to do his job. And the assistant is should we really do that? And she's like, yes, we have to do this. We find out later that the lead doctor is in on this completely separate, random, conspiracy theory.
Yeah, so essentially we find that out. I think it's pretty much right now. We find that Sola, or whatever her name is, something like that.
Solau or something.
Yeah.
Solau.
Sulin, no. This isn't Blake 7.
Her and Nielsen are in on this together.
Right. We don't really know what they're doing yet, other than that they're plotting against, Vorshak and just the rest of the crew.
Mm-hmm. Well, so here's an instance of, you said, the Doctor shows up and he's not even a good guy, because he shows up, they're being chased, and the Doctor's, not really being chased actively, but they know that the people are looking for them. And the Doctor's first thought of his first way to get out is to set the reactor of the base to self-destruct, because that'll call all of the people to the reactor room to fix the problem, allowing them to escape to the TARDIS. And when has the Doctor ever, when has his first choice ever been to cause more damage to escape? What? What?
Yeah, I don't remember other Peter Davison stories, or I guess I don't remember other stories of this era having or depicting Peter Davison's Doctor like this. No. I don't want to say this is out of character, but maybe I'm doing everything but saying that.
You're skirting around the topic. And so some guards show up. There's this really impressive backflip that the Doctor does as he goes flying over the railing into the water, and Turlo in the story is just also ready to give up at like every moment, which I seem to remember being in character for him. But he's just instantly he's like, all right, we gotta go, Tegan, because the Doctor's dead. And she's like, but he's still like right there, and he's like, no, Doctor's drowned, we gotta go, Doctor's drowned.
But also later on in the story, again, being one of the very few classic Doctor Who companions who has very clear and I think evident on-screen character development, Turlo actually tries to save the Doctor and Tegan a lot later on in the story.
Yeah, he goes back.
Yeah.
And also in terms of the character development, we do at the start of the story get the Doctor saying like, so you've changed your mind about wanting to go home then, right, Turlo? And he's like, yeah, don't want to go home.
I'm like looking back on this, I'm still surprised at how much they gave Turlo and to an extent also Tegan, and to maybe even an even lesser extent also Nyssa. Like, I'm surprised how much they gave those characters compared to like earlier characters that had a lot less in terms of the development. Because I mean, like, you know, you think back to a character like Jamie, and Jamie's great, don't get me wrong, but like his story is that he's just like the Doctor's friend who just helps him out, essentially.
Yeah. Well, let's not forget that both Nyssa and Tegan joined the TARDIS because their closest family member was killed by the Master.
Right.
Unintentional parallels, who knows? But all of them in this era got character development. Like, they all got write-outs too that were consistent with their character. Like, we see Tegan in the story, like, starting to abhor, I guess, the violence that she is a part of. When Nyssa left, we had seen her growing to want to help people in the way that the Doctor does. When Turlo leaves, again, like we see in this story, him going back to save the Doctor, like him facing his fears and taking charge, right?
Yeah, which ties into him facing his sentence or whatever in Planet of Fire.
Which turns out to have just, like, they nullified, so...
Right.
Well, episode 2. So here's one of the random background things I just wanted to note that I thought was hilarious. But, so the Doctor sends Tegan and Turlo, like, they run ahead, which is why they watch the Doctor drown, and they're not, like, right next to him when he goes flying over the railing. But when this guy goes to arrest the Doctor, he looks really depressed and doesn't even look like he's going to arrest the Doctor. He looks like he's just depressed and trying to get to the other side of the room, and the Doctor's in the way. Like, go back and watch it, because it's kind of hilarious. Wow. And then the Doctor just beats him on the back of the head, and he just looks depressed, like he doesn't even want to do this job, and the Doctor just bashes him on the back of the head, and I'm like, oh man, I feel bad for this guy. Oh man.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't notice any of this. I also really got some sort of sick enjoyment out of, like, when the Doctor's drowning and Turlo is like, he's dead, Tegan, like, we have to just leave, we can't save him. He's been in the water for, like, all of 10 seconds at that point. Like, yeah. Definitely, like, you know, it looks on screen like he's drowned, like he's floating upside down in the water, but at the same time, like, yeah, the Doctor can swim, right? I mean...
Yes.
So, like, why?
I would assume.
Yeah, so, like, a few seconds in the water would not be enough to kill him.
Turlo just wants to leave. Like, again, he's like, screw this, I'm out.
I wonder if all incarnations of the Doctor can swim. Like, do you, like, that's actually an interesting question. Like, as a Time Lord, do you lose your, like, abilities when you regenerate? Like, for example, maybe the 4th Doctor knew how to ride a bike, and then when he regenerated into the 5th Doctor, he had to relearn all over again, you know?
I think, you keep some of your memories, so maybe that would imply that certain skills carry over. Although maybe they don't, and maybe that would explain why the 4th Doctor was so good at piloting the TARDIS and the 5th Doctor just sucked.
Yeah, it never really seems clear what carries over and what doesn't. I don't think there's a real, consistency to that or anything. Maybe
it's like playing skills roulette. Like, oh man, I might forget how to learn to I might forget how to ride a bike, but maybe I'll learn how to play the tuba. Like, you never know.
Some of the doctors do seem more musically inclined than the others, so maybe there's some merit to that.
The second Doctor just and his recorder that they used in like four episodes, and then a tuning fork in the Space Pirates.
And then promptly forgot about.
Oh man, why didn't they use the recorder instead of the tuning fork in the Space Pirates? Oh well. Well, so there's this another humorous scene where the Silurians. So in episode 1, they were like, we don't know if the Sea Devils survived because they should be awake by now, but clearly the auto waking sequence has failed. So they go to check on them, and they like start waking up. And my note here is, oh shit, the Warriors survived. Holy shit, none of us expected this. Because the way the Silurians are acting, they're like, damn, we legitimately didn't expect them to survive. What do we do now?
I have a note about that as well. They sound totally surprised here. Like, oh man, this plan that we already initiated actually has some chance of working out, guys. Like, sweet.
We also have another really clunky line of dialogue where they're like, we must awaken the blood-related comrades. And what? So Turlo and Tegan get captured, and they get taken to Commander Vorshak. And he's like, why did the Doctor try to blow up the reactor? And I'm like, yeah, why did the Doctor try to blow up the reactor? And Turlo has this line where he's like, if he'd wanted to destroy it, it'd be lying in pieces at your feet. And I'm like, yes, but still.
Is that a good thing? Like...
Yeah. Is that supposed to be like, is that your defense of the Doctor, Turlo? My next note is, why did this slow down so much all of a sudden? Because like episode 1 felt like it moved at a pretty good clip, Episode 2 was moving decently quick, and then like as soon as Turlo says this, it basically hits a wall in terms of pacing.
I think it's because we get a lot of scenes of the Doctor just running through corridors. That's basically the remainder of his role in episode 2 until we get to the Merca at the end.
Well, I mean, that's coming soon because they start... Okay, wait, hang on. I have a note here that's just... It's literally just one word. It just says whack, but I have no idea what it's referring to.
Maybe it's just your general opinion about this whole thing,
Okay, so the Sea Devils decide to invade the base because this is the Silurians' plan, to use the Sea Devils because, okay, I guess Johnny Byrne has decided to turn the Sea Devils into the warrior type cast of the Silurian society, and the Silurians are like the leaders, I guess, which was like never really an implication that was in either the Sea Devils or the Silurians, but which I guess they're going for here. I guess is what they're doing.
Yeah, I don't think we discussed this the first time we watched it, but the Sea Devils are totally just pawns in the game here.
Yeah, they're just like the Silurians are just using them to invade the sea base. And then that's it. Like that's their entire purpose. And then the Silurians come striding in at the end of the day when they've captured the base to enact their frankly insane plan.
Yeah.
And this is when we get the perfect Merca. Because they get into the airlock, and the Doctor and gang run in, and they're all shooting at the door. They're all waiting for the door to open, and it opens, and out comes trotting. It looks like a really, really bad pantomime horse.
Yeah, covered in like algae.
And I'm going to give Pennant Roberts credit here. Pennant Roberts, I didn't realize this the first time we watched this, but Pennant Roberts is trying really, really hard to hide how bad the costume looks. By like every time we see the Merca, it's like from a weird angle, or or it's behind someone, or it's behind a box. Like he's trying really, really hard in this scene to hide how bad it looks. And my note is, you can try hide the shittiness from me, but you're not fooling me.
Yeah, I think once episode 3 hits, like there's just nothing they can do. It has to be on screen. Like the script calls for it to be on screen for more than they can reasonably like cover up, you know?
Yeah, because it's got to go running down the corridors.
But you know, I can't believe I'm saying this, but the Merca actually looks better than I remembered. Because all right, hear me out here. I
Boy.
remembered the Merca's head just being a Sea Devil head. And it's not. It's actually like a distinct thing. It's not great, but it's not as shoddy as I remember it.
I'm going to agree with you insofar as the head does not look as bad as I remembered. The rest of the body looks maybe worse than I remembered, actually.
I was going to say that, actually. The body itself looks worse.
I love this scene at the end of episode 2, this shot, because Tegan gets trapped underneath a piece of the ceiling, and the doctor's trying to lift it off of her, and it's so clearly styrofoam that he's, quote, struggling, unquote, to lift off of Tegan, but we just get a shot of the Merca's face, and it just looks so confused by what's going on. Like, it just looks completely befuddled at this course of events.
Yeah, that's great.
Oh.
Anyway, episode 2 ends with the Merca bursting in, and Tegan goes, or the doctor goes, Braveheart Tegan, and I think Tegan repeats it.
Yeah, because Tegan gets stuck under the styrofoam, they get trapped inside the airlock because everybody else runs out and they lock the door, and Turlo's like, you gotta open the door for the doctor, and they're like, no, the Merc is in there.
Episode 3 begins with the Merca breaking in and killing like a ton of people.
Yeah, literally going on a rampage. Like it's basically almost indestructible. Almost.
Yeah, and the Sea Devils, of course, also break in along with it, and we get just what I think is probably one of the lamest fight sequences Doctor Who has ever graced us with. Because it's just, there's no, I'm pretty sure it's Dudley Simpson who did the score here, right? His soundtrack cuts out. There's no there's no music to punctuate any of this. It's just, and you know, the low energy level of the Sea Devils combines with the low energy level of most of the extras in this, and we just get this low energy, lifeless battle where people are in fact losing their lives and falling down. Just, you know, it's just, words can't even describe it. You have to see it for yourself. It's just awful.
Every time you say low energy, I'm reminded of every time Trump tweeted about his opponents, like, low energy Jeb. He's weak. Weak. Yeah, no, I think this scene is particularly hilarious because, like, the extras didn't really seem like they knew what was going on when they were getting shot at by the Silurians. So that when they die, they just kind of go, and fall over. And then when they add the special effects for the guns, it's like doesn't match what's happening. Warriors of the Deep. How we loved you. You had so much promise. Yeah, the samurai-looking Sea Devils come in and they literally just start mowing down the humans. Like,
but even this is not like cool. Like, yeah, violence. Like in just a sense of like, yeah, I kind of want to see some violence on screen. Even this is just like they just kind of trudge in really in their sort of way that they have of like just slowly walking. And just kind of slowly and just, I don't know, casually shoot people on their way.
They're like really casual, really lame Terminators. Imagine watching a Terminator movie and everyone's like, it's a godless killing machine. If it finds you, John Connor, you'll literally die. And 3/4 of the way through the movie, the door opens. It's like, oh God, it's the Terminator. And it's this goofy looking Sea Devil. It pops the door open. They're like,
Well, Okay. So much like Blade Runner, I've actually never seen Terminator or any of the Terminator movies. So I'm just imagining now, like Predator. Imagine if, like in Predator, the Predator just like didn't have any camouflage, didn't have any like tech, just kind of walked into the little, I don't know, area of the jungle that they're in, shot everyone, just kind of like shrugged and left.
Imagine the Predator, where they all get captured and taken to the Predator planet, and they're like, we're being hunted by the most terrifying alien species of all time. And then they're like getting killed by traps and everything, and then just the alien spaceship comes down and the ramp deploys, and you see a silhouette, and you're like, is that? No, it couldn't be. It's a sea devil. The perfect hunter. Now I'm imagining Alien 3. They're in the prison. They're like, oh God, there's an alien on the loose. And then the famous scene with Sigourney Weaver, where the alien is like next to her, dripping saliva. And it's just sea devil face. It's a sea devil face. It just wanders into frame like.
Now, please, if you're listening to this and your Photoshop skills are good enough, please Photoshop sea devils into famous movie scenes with movie monsters. And I think mine are actually passable enough to do that, but I don't think I'm going to.
I think mine are as well. We should have totally not a competition. See which of our fans can come up with the best insertion of a sea devil into a famous movie scene.
God. Something else I want to point out here, and perhaps I shouldn't point this out because I have absolutely nothing else to say about it, but I feel like it warrants being pointed out, is that most of the cannon fodder extras who just die in this are black or brown, and most of the main characters who also die but who have far larger roles are white. I don't know if you noticed that.
I didn't notice that, but now that that's out there, you can't take it back unless they fix it in post, delete it in post. I shouldn't say fix. That has weird connotations for that statement.
I mean, yeah, I mean, there's no reason why it shouldn't be out there. It's a thing that is in the episode, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just have like nothing else to say. I have nothing to say about it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
Also reminds me of Blade Runner, how like all of Los Angeles now has like signs in Chinese, but like every main character in the movie is white. But like there's clearly a background implication that most of LA is now like Asian American of some sort. But every main character is white.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. In episode 3, the Doctor goes to Rorschach and he's like, hey, you need to like call him back up and let me talk to the Silurians because I knew them and I've fixed this before and I can talk to them. I've acted as the ambassador before. And I'm like, yeah, when the brig killed all of them. And he's like, well, we can't contact command because if we contact them, that'll give away our location. And I'm like, okay, wait, hold up. Number one, you built this base knowing that if you contacted anyone, it would be revealed. So first off, how did you build it there without anyone knowing you were building the base there? Second off, you could literally contact no one, but at the beginning of the story, when the other missile commander dies, the Dr. Solau or whatever is like, or actually not her, the female commander, when she's talking with Maddox, is like, don't worry, like we've radioed for a replacement who will come in and replace the missile commander who's died and will be here in a day. So you don't even need to worry because you probably won't need to launch the missiles before then. So I'm like, wait a minute. Whoa. Hold up. Wait a minute. What is going on with this whole communications blackout nonsense? And that's all I have to say on that.
Yeah, I have no idea. Just again, I just don't know. Great that we're coming on, or I'm coming on to this podcast like whose entire purpose is to talk about these stories and just being like, yeah, I don't know.
Well,
I just
okay.
have no
This is
idea.
a whole story of just, I don't know. It's just,
Well, one thing I do know is that Solau or whoever her name is dies unceremoniously, just gets shot in a corridor,
yeah.
which I guess is okay. She doesn't need to have a ceremonious death.
It just underscores the futility of life, of how easily it can be taken away from you.
Yeah, not only the futility of life, but the futility of like war and revenge, but also the futility of like trying to refute that any of this is bad.
Right, because you'll also die.
I guess. Yeah. Yeah.
Great. Great.
So Maddox is also about to die because, and I totally forgot how dark his character is because he's just used as a tool by Nielsen and Solau,
Mm-hmm.
and essentially just thrown out.
Yeah, they use him to like mess around with the isolinear chips or whatever, and then Wojciech finds out and he's like, "You're gonna be court-martialed for this, Nielsen." And Nielsen's like, "Haha, no," and tries to mutiny. And it's revealed that Nielsen is an enemy agent of like a third faction that's being introduced in this story. Like at the end of episode 3, we're meeting a third player in the game. Not that it lasts that long, because Nielsen dies like the instant episode 4 starts. Or at the end of episode 3, actually, because he gets blinded by the doctor at the end of episode 3, and then in episode 4 he gets killed by the unstoppable march of the Sea Devils.
Yeah, we forgot to mention the like better looking Sonic Lance thing that they bring in, which it's not a Sonic Lance, it's just like a sort of
The doctor calls it a convertible.
convertible. he, he just rolls up in like a Porsche.
Okay. So when he's coming up with this plan, he's like, I need a convertible right here. And I wrote, don't we all, doctor, don't we all? That's also how they kill America, by the way, is they blind him with science.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it turns out the Merca. I mean, this kind of makes sense, but I was also like, well, it's kind of a cop-out. Because the Merca was like born and lived in the deep, dark trenches of the ocean, it's susceptible to like blinding UV rays of the sun, which they simulate using this light gun.
Yeah, that is. I like that. It does feel a bit odd because the entire base is brightly lit, so.
Yeah, but I mean, the doctor just concentrated the beam of solar energy. I don't know what I'm saying.
I like it in concept though, is that they, this creature that's lived in total darkness for who knows how long is defeated by, light because its eyes aren't used to it.
Well, so into episode 4, the doctor is talking with the Silurians who have successfully taken over the command center. Turlo and Tegan and the woman commander whose name I still don't know, and I'm doing her a disservice by not knowing her name, but it's fine because she dies in 10 seconds, are trapped in a room.
Yeah, we've gone like 6 years being like, yeah, I didn't know the character's name.
In true Trust Your Doctor fashion. Good to know we haven't changed. So he's like, in an earlier regeneration, you knew me as the Doctor. And I'm like, wait, so is your name like not the Doctor now? Like, just the way he says it is like, oh, yeah, you've changed your name. My name's James now.
Oh my god. My name is...
Can you imagine if in the Timeless
Shit.
Children, the master was like, do you know the secret of James? And the doctor's like, wait, what? The master's like, your name, it's James. It's not Theta Sigma. It's James. The best thing that the Timeless Children gave us was the ability to make jokes about the master just telling the doctor weird and random wacky stuff in the Matrix. The Silurians say that the only solution. No, not the solution. Someone says that the only solution left is the final solution. I'm like, oh wow, all right. And
Yeah,
then it turns out that that literally, in the context of the story, also means a genocide. So it's like, wow, okay, guys, subtlety, you got it.
yeah.
Which, if you don't know, then Hitler's the name that was given to Hitler's plan to exterminate the Jewish population was the final solution.
Right. I get why it's called this in the story, because like you mentioned, they're planning on, genociding the human race. But at the same time, I kind of question the decision to incorporate this real world term that was used into this story about like lumbering, samurai armor wearing, derpy looking sea creatures and a giant stupid looking sea monster.
Seahorse.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's because the Silurians, they just hate the humans so much that they're like, we're going to kill all of you. But we're not going to kill you. We're going to have you kill each other by instigating a nuclear war between the two powers. So...
yeah. Maybe also this isn't like hitting home for us as much because we're watching it in, well, whatever, like 2017 or whenever we first watched it, and 2020. Maybe this is more poignant in 1984 when a lot of people were scared about nuclear war. Oh, it's coming back, kind of. But
possibly. I mean, it's kind of undermined by the Silurians' next line with like, you developed these weapons. We can't be held responsible for this. And I'm like,
yeah. Yeah.
Maybe we'll like come back around and the story will be impactful. I mean, it's like what we talked about with Monster of Peladon, right? Where what we were like, well, this is like, the feminist tilt of the story was like, we were like, well, it's not really super radical anymore because a lot of these ideas have been implemented in a good number of countries since 1973. And maybe it's the same thing here where like, we removed the fear of a nuclear war for some number of years. But like you said, I mean, it's coming back now. So maybe this will come around and be more impactful in 20 years when we're sitting in our bombed out wasteland of Los Angeles. I don't know.
Sitting there and just thinking about how Johnny Byrne was right all along.
It's like that. I don't know if you've seen this comic, but it's two guys sitting in like a post-apocalyptic street, sitting on the sidewalk, and they're wearing like gas masks. And one guy goes, "I miss the internet." And the guy picks up a piece of paper and draws something, and then hands it to the first guy, and then he says, "Thanks," or something like that. And usually the drawings are placed with something from the internet. But there's also a variation of the comic where instead of saying thanks, he says, "F you," because the guy will draw something really cursed from the internet and give it to the first guy, and he'll be like, "Wow." I'll find it and put it in the show notes. I'll find an example and put it in the show notes. That's going to be us with Johnny Byrne's The Sea Devils. Or not the Warriors from the Deep. Johnny Byrne's version of the Sea Devils.
I miss Doctor Who, and then some jerkwad is just like, remember the massacre?
I miss Doctor Who, and then someone just hands you a picture of the Merca. Signed by the Merca.
Weirdly,
herself.
I just signed by the Merca. I see that a lot online, actually, of like people complaining about how Doctor Who used to be great in the classic era and how it's just not anymore. And then someone just comes in and posts like a story of, I don't know, just some like Tom Baker or Colin Baker story that in their opinion was not very good and in most people's opinion wasn't, or whatever. Just comes in like, remember this? Remember this absolute masterpiece?
I mean, it's selective memory at its finest. Selective memory at its finest. It's like when people go, remember when 2016 was so great. And it's like, remember when we elected Trump in 2016?
Yeah, I'm just going to say this right now because apparently this podcast and this episode in particular is just becoming like our platform to talk about whatever. But like recently I've noticed, and I'm glad about this, but like it's actually older people. I'm generalizing here, so don't take this as, as me saying this goes for everyone, but like it's generally older people who I think dislike the current era of Doctor Who for unfounded reasons, and younger people who are actually enjoying it. And I find that to be like a good thing. And it was actually, I think, Peter Davison, unless this quote is misattributed to him, who actually said that like when asked if he thinks Doctor Who would ever end, he was like, I think as long as like young people are interested in Doctor Who, I don't think it'll ever end. Because the people who are making Doctor Who right now are the ones who were fascinated by it when they were young. And if the new show is doing the same thing, then I don't think, it should have to end.
Yeah, I saw that quote also attributed to Peter Davison, and I was like, yeah, I mean, I agree with him because it's kind of the same thing that I was wondering, what's Doctor Who going to look like when it's show run by someone who grew up with the Russell T era, mm-hmm. right? Like, what's it going to look like when we have someone who was a kid during the Russell T or the Moffat generation running the show now and doing what they wanted to do when they were kids? And, I'm not going to make a statement on whether it's good or not if the older people dislike the show, but I will say that it's good that the younger generation is enjoying the show.
Yeah, it's probably a better take than mine.
Well, speaking of younger people, Maddox is dead and somebody has to run the missile command from the little brain switch, because what happens is Turlough and Tegan decide to try rescue the Doctor, and Solau's like, we'll just flood it with hexachloride gas, and they're like, no, that'll kill everyone.
You mean the other female, like the only other female whose name I forgot.
They're gonna call her the Commander. She's like, hey, we should do this, and they're like, no, that'll literally kill all the Silurians. And I'm like, well, it's not like they're giving us a choice. And they're like, the Silurians have this box that will replace the need for a missile commander, but it gets destroyed. So in order for the Doctor to abort the countdown, he has to send some electric pulse through the system. It's like mostly technobabble and Peter Davison sitting under like the Animus from the Web Planet, but worse. And this is another really humorous thing that happens in the background of this story. But so Turlough and Tegan bust in. Whoa, saying it in that order was weird. They bust into the door, the bridge, and hold the Silurians at gunpoint. And the Silurians try to escape. And not Maddox, Vorshak is like, Doctor, don't let anything distract you, because if you do this at the wrong time, it'll fry your brain. And he literally says, don't let anything distract you. And it cuts to like Tegan standing in the foreground, I think, and in the background, you just see Turlough with a Silurian on the ground, and he executes him point blank. He just executes the Silurian.
What?
So my note is, let nothing distract you, like Turlough literally executing the Silurian point blank in the background of the shot.
Holy shit! I did not notice that whatsoever. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
And I guess you could make an argument like maybe he's just knocking him out, but it looks the way it's staged is the Silurian's lying on the ground, Turlough's like straddling him, got a gun to the Silurian's face, and then like the Silurian plops back like.
Yeah, that's. Wow. Yeah.
Well, the Doctor succeeds in not getting distracted by his companion just committing a brutal execution.
And in a rare instance, they actually stop the countdown at 0.
Yeah.
It actually goes to 0, but apparently it's stopped before anything bad can happen. Or anything else bad can happen, I should say.
Yeah. Also, I'm not really sure what kills Vorshak here, but he also dies. Somehow.
Yeah, so all the Silurians and Sea Devils kill because...
Kill.
Let me start that sentence over. All the Silurians and Sea Devils die because of the hexachromide. But why do all the humans die again? I was not very clear on this, and I was kind of checked out and kind of tired. And
I think they just die. Maybe Turlo executes them.
Well,
I actually don't know.
Yeah.
Everybody except Vorshak dies in a battle with the Silurians and the Sea Devils, so I just don't know how he dies, basically.
He doesn't make it through, does he? Like, he for sure dies, right? Oh, God.
That's what I thought. I thought it was only the female commander who makes it through the story, so, like, I was pretty sure he died.
I have no idea. I think it's telling that we were both kind of checked out at this point.
Well, it doesn't matter because the story literally just ends right there because the Doctor basically turns to the camera and goes, "There should have been another way," and then smash cut to the credits with
smiles
this version
and
of
winks
the
into
theme
the
I
camera.
forgot. Oh my God. And to all of you at home, wink. There should have been another way. Boo! Oh wait, no, we get the like the sting in now. You know. I don't actually know how to do it vocally, so
that was pretty close.
Shout out to that one time that Mel's scream was at the exact same note as the scream leading into the theme.
Terror of the Vervoids.
Yeah. Well, so that ends the story, and I'm just going to say right out now, I have no critical reevaluation of the story, except for all the hilarious things I noticed going on in the backgrounds of shots this time.
No, if anything, I think this was less enjoyable than the first time. I will give it credit for the depiction of this bleak future and incorporating a lot of different causes into that, like warmongering, not giving a shit about the environment, and a few more. But at the same time, God, it was just so boring. It was just so boring.
Yeah, I mean, it delivers important, I would say, messages, but never really does so in a way that makes you go, yes, like that's something I should think about, because you're so uninvested in the plot.
Yeah, I would say that's a good word. I think this, uninvested that is, I think this story really just throws you in with a bunch of characters who are hard to even care about at all, because all of them are pretty bad people. And
nobody in this story really acts in any sort of way that endears you to them, right? Like, Commander Vorshak refuses to contact home base because it might give away their position to the enemy, when, like, clearly the Silurians are here and they're going to kill you and potentially start a nuclear war.
They're on the base, man. Like, they figured out your position already. And yeah, the other characters just behave similarly. And again, perhaps it would diminish the bleakness of the story to have a good character here. But at the same time, I think it makes it hard to even care about the story to begin with when there's not even one single, like, person who's trying to do anything right.
Yeah, I mean, again, like, even the doctor pops in, and the first thing he does is like, I'm going to set the reactor to blow itself up. And everyone's like, wait, what? What? That's your plan to get out of here?
Right.
I don't know.
That actually, this kind of sheds a light on one thing I really like about the Chris Chibnall / Jodie Whittaker era, is that a lot of the characters are, if not good people, like, a lot of even the villains are just trying to do what they think is right. Even Tim Shaw, like, as like terrible of a being as he is, is just doing like what he knows, like to, or what he kind of thinks is. And I think we talked about this when we discussed the Battle of Ranskorav Kolas. Is like he's kind of just doing, what he thinks is best, if not right.
Well, in The Woman Who Fell to Earth, he doesn't even want to like wipe out the human race. He just wants to kill one guy, and only because like that's how his society has determined that's how they choose their leaders, is you have to hunt down this one guy on some random planet and kill them. And he's like, yeah, he doesn't question it, which, okay, that's a bad thing. And he doesn't question that he has to go mindlessly kill this person, but it's compared to like everybody in this story, like it's just he wants to kill one guy and that's it. And if nobody got in his way, it would only be that one guy. I mean, he's still a terrible person, but
yeah, and I think maybe like there's another version of this story in some other timeline or something that kind of gives us that, where it's like, obviously a character like Nilsson is just doing what he thinks is right, even if that's just like he's being paid by the highest bidder or something like that. But the story never really gives us, I think, that insight.
Well, I mean, maybe the point is that we don't like any of these people because we're supposed to like think that war is bad and apply our feelings towards these people onto their motivation, like beyond them as a person. But like that again falls flat because like even our main cast of heroes is unlikable. Like the story, I mean, in my mind, the version that works has the Dr. Tolo and Tegan show up and they're just trapped in this unwinnable situation. They're actually trying to be good people and they're trying to figure everything out. And they kind of go that direction with the Doctor wanting to talk with Silurians and talk them down. But again, the Doctor shows up and he wants to blow up the reactor. Tolo's willing to leave the Doctor for dead twice in this story. Once when he's drowned and once again when they escape from the room and he's like, we should just go. Like the Doctor's probably dead. We should just go. Tegan sits like on the fence for the whole story. She never really does anything either way to sway your opinion of her. But so instead of giving us these characters who we can latch onto and be like, yes, that's me. I'm the man who's like not involved in the war, just trying to survive, right? Like instead, we've got these terrible people in a terrible situation where everybody's just being terrible.
Yeah, it makes it easier to insert yourself and relate than ever.
Wow. Wow.
And with that,
let's go into the one email we got this week.
well, I looked up actors for this.
Oh, yes. Britain's 10 act. I forgot we were doing that on this show now. Glad you did that because I only looked that up for Sapphire and Steel.
I didn't look up everyone, but I did look up. Okay, so there are actually a few interesting tidbits here. So a stunt man who worked on this story named... Sorry, hang on. Gareth Milne, or Milne... I don't know how to pronounce that. His last name is spelled Milne. Actually played George Cranley in Black Orchid. Yeah.
What?
And he was a stunt double for the Doctor. He's the one who we see face down in the water.
In the lake. The indoor lake.
Yep. So, and also Ingrid Pitt, who played Dr. Solau, was actually Queen Galea in The Time Monster.
What?
Or Gallia, or I don't remember how you pronounce her name, but yeah. Yep.
What?
So some weird parallels there. A couple other actors in this. Vorshak was played by Tom Adams, who was in UFO for one episode and had a recurring role on something called Emergency Ward 10. Nelson was played by Ian McCulloch, or however you pronounce that, whose brother, Andrew McCulloch, wrote Meglos.
What? What?
And he also had so this is Ian McCulloch, the guy who played Nelson, apparently had a recurring role on Survivors, Terry Nation's 1977 show.
Survivors.
Yeah.
Gonna watch that for Inevitable at some point, I'm sure.
Yep. The guy who played Maddox was in Minder. That was like his only other thing that I kind of had, or made note of. And yeah, that's all that I had.
Huh. I'm glad you remembered to do that because I honestly forgot.
Yeah, just inevitably it's going to stop being a part of this podcast when we forget to do it.
Well, we've stopped doing quotes. Maybe it's because there's no like really memorable quotes anymore.
I took one for this episode, surprisingly enough, but I mentioned it already. It was the one where Tegan goes, "Progress doesn't seem to have solved anything." Which I just took as I tabbed out to some news.
Great. I watched Doctor Who to escape the news, not to... I mean, the only quotes I took down were the awkward lines from the Silurians, like, as we had planned in the first place, and the blood-related comrades.
Yeah, those are pretty clunky.
They try to give the Doctor a grand speech in episode 4 when the Silurians are like, we're fighting a defensive war, and he goes, there's no such thing, you can't fight a defensive war, but it just completely lands flat on his face, because at this point you just like so don't care about any of these characters. It's also like not super well written, so as evidenced by the fact that I can literally remember nothing else that the Doctor said during it except that's not possible.
No, that's not possible.
All right, let's get into the one email we've got from Steven. Subject line: An Adventure in Space and Time. Hey guys, I finally got around to watching An Adventure in Space and Time. I loved it. This might be a hot take, but I thought the line, quote, I don't want to go, unquote, worked much better here than in The End of Time. I actually got very emotional hearing it in this docudrama. I was also surprised to see Sacha Dhawan playing Waris Hussein in this, as the filming for the original pilot was going terribly, causing him to rest his head on his desk. I thought to myself, quote, this is what drove him mad enough to become the master, unquote. So now I have theories, and I want to hear what you think of them. A. What if this Waris Hussein was so frustrated by the show that he wanted to destroy Doctor Who, and so he escaped into the universe where Doctor Who is real and took on the identity of the Master? B. What if, in Series 13, we discovered that the Spy Master orchestrated or, quote, directed, unquote, the events of stories like An Unearthly Child and Marco Polo? Anyway, really enjoyed the docudrama overall. Just saw that the first Doctor Adventures audios with the actors who played Doctor Who, Susan, Ian, and Barbara, in this are discounted, so I'm excited to listen to those. Cheers, Stephen.
Yeah, those are some wild theories, but The Timeless Children has opened up the door for a lot of meta stuff, I think. So while I don't think, I mean, obviously I know you were joking, Stephen, but like, while I don't think any of that is going to happen exactly as you describe, perhaps there's some more meta shenanigans that, might pair or might get...
that are yet to come.
Or that might like kind of give us some of this, yeah.
Well, like I proposed last week with the show pulling away to reveal everything's on a soundstage with the kid from Listen, what if instead we just pull away from the set, pull away from Doctor Who, pan out, we see the director standing over to the side, he turns around and who is it? It's Sacha Dhawan playing Waris Hussein. Waris Hussein created Doctor Who and the entire show just exists inside his mind. Just let that sink in for a bit as an ending.
The last episode is just Waris Hussein like waking up in a cold sweat and going like, oh, man, that was a weird dream. Meh, whatever, and just goes back to sleep.
It's just Verity Lambert. The final scene of the show is just the scene from Adventures in Space and Time where Verity Lambert's trying to convince Bill Hartnell to play the Doctor, and we fade out from Doctor Who back to that scene, and Hartnell just looks at Verity and goes, no.
It shouldn't be a fade out. It should be like one of those like snapshot, like quick recaps of like images of throughout Doctor Who's history, like going back from the current era all the way back to the past, and then you cut to the scene you mentioned.
Oh, even better. It's you play it like Verity Lambert is explaining the entire the future history of Doctor Who to William Hartnell, and so you have the story going, and then you cut to Verity Lambert saying something like, and then the Doctor, she'll pick up her sonic screwdriver and she'll point it at something, and then Hartnell just goes, hang on, Verity? No. Smash cut to end credits. Doctor Who ends. BBC. Our email is thedoctor@decadentvegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, thoughts on Doctor Who
Yeah,
ending.
people think
Like
Chibnall is
that.
ruining the show. Just wait till we're in charge 30 years from now.
It's if we actually are in charge 30 years from now, there'll be people digging through this podcast looking for every hint of what might be coming next. Just like there are those people who dig through Stephen Moffat's old forum posts looking to see like what he was going to do next. Or the people who are digging through all those old footage of Chibnall speaking in interviews to find out what he's going to do next. There'll be people like that for this podcast. That's weird to think about. But anyway. You can find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify, all at Trust Your Doctor. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Oh, check us out. Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast and follow us on Twitter. And next time, we're going to be watching Mind Warp. But until then, the end.